Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We're so excited to have you here today as we take some time and help you learn how to connect with audiences through sponsored content. My name is Katrina Toyer. I am the content specialist with Postmedia and your host for today. A little heads up, since our guests are on mute, we welcome you to use the chat to ask any questions you might have. And on that note, to make sure everyone is comfortable with the chat, let's start off with a quick icebreaker to get things going. We would love for you to share what brought you to our webinar today. So please share with us in the chat what you hope to be today's main takeaway. Maybe it's to increase brand awareness. Perhaps you'd like a better understanding on how to engage your target audience. We'd love to know. All right, well, that was excellent, everybody. So to answer your questions, we are going to take a few different approaches. Our presenters will answer some questions throughout, and we also will provide some in the chat as well. At the end of today's presentation, we'll have a short Q&A session. To start off, please meet Sophie Rust, executive producer from the Content Works team. This lovely lady will be monitoring today's chat. A little wave and hi there, Sophie.
Hi, everyone.
Great. Some of you on today's call are quite familiar with Postmedia, and some you're just getting to know us now. So let me take a few moments and tell you a little bit about us. Postmedia is a trusted and reliable network of over 130 media brands with credentials of outstanding journalism, extensive digital capabilities, and an audience of millions of Canadians each month. We provide clients exclusive access to an owned and operated advertising channel and a wealth of first-party data that enables better campaign performance, not just on the Postmedia network, but on search and social channels, digital out-of-home, and much more. On today's call, this webinar, you will learn more about how sponsored content is different from other forms of advertising, maximizing your content investment strategy, benefits of leveraging trusted publishers, and throughout the presentation, we'll also share content success stories and best practices. With us today, we have two very talented presenters from the Postmedia Content Works team. And before I introduce them, let me tell you a bit about Content Works. This is Postmedia's award-winning service commercial studio. They have a team of extremely creative individuals who produce integrated multi-platform content for clients ranging from national brands to small local businesses and everything in between by working with businesses and marketers to create articles, infographics, and more for our advertiser partners that are published and promoted through Postmedia's network. Our first presenter is Matt Fleming. He is the director of Content Works. He has nearly 2 decades of experience in journalism, PR, custom publishing, and content marketing. Matt has created brand and content for a wide range of clients from local mom and pop shops to global brands such as Samsung, Toyota, and AstraZeneca. As the leader of Postmedia's branded content studio, he develops strategies to make sponsored content more engaging and more effective. Matt is joined by Leah Bjornson, who's an executive producer for Content Works. She's a branded content expert with a proven track record of building and managing content teams. In previous roles, Leah has collaborated on content executions with Fortune 500 brands and premium digital publishers such as Apartment Therapy, Elle Canada, and New York Magazine.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. Leah and I are super excited to be with you to talk about sponsored content. I think to start, it probably makes sense for us to explain exactly what we mean by sponsored content. Essentially, it's paid content, so articles, videos, listicles, social media, and lots more hosted by a trusted media publisher and promoted through the trusted media publisher's channels. The content is typically produced by the publisher's in-house creative team in collaboration with the client. It's crafted to provide an editorial style experience for readers, so it's not interruptive. It matches the form, feel, and function of the rest of the site. The idea being that when readers are more receptive to advertising when it's in a format that they know and love. You might also know this as advertorial, but the key difference is that we never want sponsored content to feel self-serving or like a sales pitch. Sponsored content needs to provide value to the reader whether it's through a good story or useful information. The last point here, which is critically important, sponsored content is labeled to ensure transparency. So different publishers have different policies on this, but we know that readers don't like to feel deceived. So that's why we include labels and disclaimers on all of our content, as well as on all the promotion of the content. And it's critical for us here at Postmedia that readers can clearly differentiate between editorial and sponsored content. So now that we've defined what sponsored content is, let's talk about some of the great advantages that sponsored content offers. First and foremost, sponsored content lets you write your own narrative. It can be a great opportunity to tell your story, convey your values, your passions, your mission. We know that consumers are more likely to support purpose-driven companies, and sponsored content is a great way to send that message. Sponsored content can be used to build credibility by establishing you or your company as a thought leader, an expert authority, an innovator, because who knows your industry better than you? This is a great opportunity to show off your expertise. Sponsored content can improve brand awareness and recognition because it's very effective at leaving a lasting impression. At Postmedia, a typical user will spend somewhere between 2 to 4 minutes with a piece of sponsored content. And in a world of endless scrolling, that's a ton of time that you can use to make a connection with your target audience. In your marketing funnel, sponsored content it can be used for awareness, engagement, or conversion, but we find that it's best suited as a tool for engagement. Sponsored content can be used to drive consumer intent and interest by providing useful information that helps consumers to make a decision. So you've been filling the top of your funnel with awareness campaigns, and we know that a lot of those consumers are going to be doing a lot of research online before making a buying decision. They're reading reviews, they're reading articles, they're watching videos, and sponsored content campaigns can help you connect with that audience and show them the content that they're looking for while they're doing their research. Because most sponsored content is promoted through social media, it can also drive a conversation, and it's a great way to get feedback from your target audience as well, especially when you ask a question with your social posts. And finally, it can be geared towards driving traffic to your site when the content includes strategically placed calls to action or through display ads that are published along with the content as well.
So adding on to what Matt has shared, perhaps the most important reason to believe in sponsored content is that it works. So I'd like everybody just for a second in the chat, please consider this and put your answer in our chat here. Has anyone here ever discussed a banner ad? You know, one of the ads that float around your browser on Facebook, for example. Have you ever discussed a banner ad with your family around the dinner table? And if you have, please, let us know in the chat. I feel like probably I can predict that there aren't very many people. But to contrast, consider when was the last time you discussed a story you read, either in the newspaper or online with your loved ones? And again, let us know in the chat, when was the last time you actually talked about something you read online, a story, something that tugged at your heartstrings? I'm gonna bet that it was a lot more often or a lot more recently than you talked about a banner ad. And the truth is that we're more likely to remember, share, and be influenced by stories than by other forms of advertising. So in fact, sponsored content is 22 times more engaging than traditional banner ads, which is probably the reason it sticks with us. But not all stories are created equal. So premium publishers have established trust with their audiences as credible news sources. This puts them ahead of content promoted on social platforms like Facebook and Twitter, according to research from Outbrain. So what does this mean for you? Through sponsored content, your brand can piggyback on premium publishers' reputations and associate itself with their trusted content, which leads to increased trust, authority, and brand lift. So to dig into this a little deeper, the report from Outbrain that I mentioned before asked readers to evaluate their levels of confidence in traditional media brands. So think Postmedia, The Guardian, The Wall Street Journal, and compare these to Facebook and Twitter. So the study found that a significant majority of respondents thought it was very important to know the source, the origin of the news content, and they had more confidence in how publishers source their content than when something just comes up on Twitter or Facebook, for example. So this reinforces the idea that it's not just about getting your content in front of as many eyeballs as possible, but where it's published matters.
Hi, Leah, it's Sophie. You
Hi.
mentioned brand lift. We have a question. Can you tell us what is brand lift?
Yeah, definitely. So brand lift essentially measures how your ads are shifting and shaping consumers' perceptions and behaviors. It changes how someone feels about your brand and then measures that. So summarizes the positive results that a brand has, since launching a digital marketing campaign, for example. And this is something that you can measure through polls and surveys.
Next, we're going to talk about a variety of approaches to sponsored content and when your business might use them. I mentioned earlier about telling your story. We helped a company called Lanka Jewels create some content that was published in the province, in print and online here in Metro Vancouver. The founder, his name is Ken, and we really loved his story. We loved helping him to tell his story. He told us about his lifelong fascination with precious stones and how it began during his childhood growing up in Sri Lanka. When he eventually immigrated to Canada, he started his jewelry business on the side while working as a nurse at a local hospital in Mission, BC, which is outside of Vancouver. He dealt with a lot of the same struggles that people deal with when starting small businesses, but it was really a labor of love, and he really had a passion for what he did. Eventually, he was able to focus on the business full time, and when the business became successful, he felt it was really important for him to share his prosperity with the community that helped him to establish his business and that had been so supportive of him over the years. And he did that through several charitable endeavors. So it was really important for him to talk about why his community means so much to him. So if you're a business owner with a passion and drive and a great story to tell, a brand story is really a great way to share that with your potential customers. A brand story is a way to put a human face on your company, build trust and empathy and understanding. And because if people get a sense of who you are and what drives you, they're more likely to support your business. Ken from Lanka Jewels told us that after the story was published, he had new customers come from quite a distance away in the Lower Mainland to shop at his store. At least one of them arrived with a copy of the newspaper in hand. So we always love to hear that. But even if you don't have a story like Ken's to share, we have several other approaches that you can take with your content as well. And as mentioned, we always want to ask when we're starting to create content, what value are we providing to readers with this content? In the previous example, it was a good story, but if readers don't find you fascinating, they may still find you knowledgeable, experienced, and useful. Service journalism is all about providing tips and advice or steps to solve a problem. It's basically news you can use. We know that consumers are doing a lot of research on what car, appliance, or mattress to buy, how to decorate their living room, how to choose a great gift for everyone on their Christmas list. And who better to provide a comprehensive buyer's guide than you? If you share advice and tips with readers, they're going to come back to you with questions and be more likely to support your business. The example that you see here is a piece that we did for Destination Canada. It was published last year when Canadians were just starting to travel again. People were interested in short city escapes, and this piece of content asked users to complete a quiz on what they were looking for on their next trip. Once readers had completed the quiz, they got their result. It was they got their city that they were being recommended to travel to. And they were provided with an article complete with lots of tips on what to see and do and where to stay. Readers really loved the quiz. We saw a lot of users sharing the results on social media and inviting their friends to take the quiz as well. And a lot of people were really surprised to learn that they would probably really love a trip to Saskatoon.
Hi, Matt. We have another question about the quiz. Other than being fun, what would be the benefit to a brand to including something like a quiz or an interactive element within their story?
Right. It's whenever users are engaging with a piece of content rather than just reading or watching a video, when they're actively clicking, they're participating in the content, it's going to leave more of an impression. It's going to make the content more shareable, more fun, and just in general, it leaves an impression, a greater impression on the user. So we always recommend these interactive elements. Next up, we're going to talk about thought leadership. And the example that you see here on your screen is from EY Canada. They wanted to champion the benefits of neurodiversity in the workplace through a sponsored content campaign. The story in the infographic focused on how neurodiverse individuals are overlooked and largely an untapped workforce in Canada and around the world for that matter. Neurodiversity is the idea that people with certain developmental disorders like ADHD can also often offer certain strengths to a business. Neurodiverse individuals have advanced skill sets that include areas such as math and logic and visual organization, and can recognize patterns or find solutions others can't see. However, they don't tend to make it past the recruiting stage in interviews. So EY Canada had already embraced neurodiversity by putting in place processes that allowed them to hire neurodiverse individuals. And they launched their Neurodiversity Centers for Excellence model to help other businesses do the same. The article provided tips on building a neurodiverse workforce, directed readers to learn more on their website, and the infographic provided a visual representation to illustrate the scale of the opportunity that exists for businesses. But thought leadership isn't just for large businesses. Financial advisors, real estate companies, patient groups, industry groups, nonprofit organizations, unions, and others are creating thought leadership to share real insights on their industries, as well as to champion causes that are most important to them. Sometimes this comes in the form of an opinion piece written in the first person. But if you're not much of a writer, a commercial content studio can always help you with that. But sometimes the views are shared through quotes in a reported story or through a video. But what it all comes down to is that in a world of economic uncertainty and disruption, consumers are looking for people that they can trust, and thought leadership really helps a lot with that.
Thanks for those examples, Matt. I'm going to share a few more. And just a reminder, please add any questions you have in our Q&A. We'll be taking some questions at the end and would love to hear what's on your mind and what you're hoping to learn today. So a few more examples just of different kinds of content you can create. So publishers will often help advertisers promote upcoming events, whether that's through pre-event promotion or on-site coverage. So for example, Alberta Theatre Projects recently wanted to promote their upcoming performances of Kim's Convenience, which is the stage production that actually inspired the hit CBC show. That was a new one for me to learn. So the play actually premiered back in 2011, which is over 10 years ago. So the organizers wanted to breathe new energy into the production and get readers to return to the theater in a post-COVID era. So the article succeeded by placing a focus on how the play differs from the popular TV series. So while the television show is a comedy, the play tugs on the heartstrings of audience members by discussing themes of immigration, racism, family, and redemption. So the article created a connection between the performance and themes that might be going on in readers' lives, and that drove a personal connection to encourage them to watch the play. It's a really great strategy. Build a connection with readers through content first. And a brand could even then follow up with those same readers, via a Facebook retargeting campaign or another ad format to encourage them to convert later on. Another example here, and I think this is a type of content that a lot of brands like to produce because a lot of companies have products and services to promote. So you can actually profile that service, that product, and speak directly to its benefits. Of course, not in an overtly salesy way, but in a way that helped your customers. So for example, we did a piece, or Divine Distillery and Winery did a piece where they wanted to promote their award-winning young whiskey called Ancient Grains. So to help raise the profile of the whiskey, the article took readers behind the scenes of how the whiskey is made, interviewing the distiller, asking him to take readers through the production process. It showcased the unique level of craft and precision that sets Divine apart from its larger competitors. So taking readers behind the scenes of your business to show them how your business operates is a really great way to build trust with readers. Not only can you add your authenticity, show your processes, showcase your expertise, but you can also address common misconceptions while providing, again, useful, unsalesy information that helps advance a consumer on their path to purchase. So another format is brand journalism. So for brands that want to share their values with readers, this is a great format to consider. Brand journalism is when you write a story about a cause or an initiative that your brand supports, again, without necessarily selling a product or service. So RBC did this recently by interviewing Oakley Rain Wiseout Gray, who is one of 20 recipients of their Indigenous Youth Scholarship. So Oakley is a two-spirit artist and designer whose fashion aims to raise awareness of the impacts of colonization on Indigenous people from coast to coast to coast. So the piece discussed their art, it shared statistics about the many challenges Indigenous youth face, and it also expressed the ways that RBC is supporting Indigenous youth across the country. So by pursuing brand journalism, you can improve how customers see your brand or even change their perception of your brand completely. You can raise awareness of your values and again, build that deeper connection with your readers that they'll remember for far longer than they would from reading a sales offer. We've spoken a lot today about sponsored content in the form of articles, but there is a whole world of content beyond written articles that brand can use to increase engagement. So we're going to touch on that briefly here. So you can tell your story through a video. I think I know, for myself, after a long day at work, it's really easy for me to be scrolling on my phone or the computer and stop and watch a video. It's easily shareable, easy to engage with. You could also create an infographic, which breaks down statistics into a visual and easily digestible format. Photos are extremely powerful. They're often what makes someone, again, stop scrolling and consider reading your article. And they can tell a story all on their own, so they deserve their own due consideration. We've already touched on quizzes and why they're an effective content format. And then there's also interactive maps. So it's an interactive tool, essentially like Google Maps, where if you're promoting an event with many locations, maybe working with a tourism partner, or you're wanting to plot your business's many locations on a map, it can easily connect your readers with that information. And again, I feel like Matt's mentioned this, but studies show that when individuals click on and interact with content, they're way more likely to remember it. So any opportunity you have in your content that you create to try to start a conversation, get people to click, is going to result in better engagement from your audience. And of course, having your story in different formats will help you reach a broader audience. So we've been talking for a bit about how other brands are using sponsored content to connect with their customers, which is all well and good, but what about you? So how does this help your business and how do you get started? The global content marketing industry is set to grow to US $417 billion by 2025. So if you want to join the ranks of all these people who are including sponsored content in their media plan, the first thing that you need to do is make a plan. So first thing to consider is, what are your marketing objectives? It might be to increase sales, increase awareness, change public perception of your brand, or hire for certain positions. And that'll help you decide what kind of content format, for example, among the ones that we've explained earlier, that you might want to pursue. Second, who is your target audience? So who are the people that connect with the goals you've already set? Then you want to consider, what are you an expert at? What great information do you have that no one else has that you can share with those people who are your target audience? What do they find valuable? And then finally, of course, what is your budget? So the good news is you can create content with any budget. But of course, this will determine things like maybe the length of story you create, the caliber of video, whether you're able to commission original videos or rather original photos, all sorts of considerations like that. But Once you've answered these basic questions, you can look at identifying publishers whose audiences align with your target customers, and then partner with them to create a content campaign. So now that you know who you're trying to reach and why, really important that you figure out what the audience wants. So we've said it a few times already, but sponsored content works best if you give, not take. So if you offer your audience something valuable, they're more likely to see you as a trusted expert and come back to your brand for support and services in the future. So start by considering, who are you trying to reach, and what do they actually want from you? What are they interested in? From there, you can match that with what your company has expertise in and what unique knowledge you have that your audience needs. And when those two worlds intersect, that is the sweet spot to sponsored content.
Next, it's time to make your content. So the first thing that you want to do is choose your approach, and we've gone over some of them here. A brand story, a service piece, a product profile, whatever fits best with your overall objectives. Remember that you need to think about how you're going to offer value to readers. Ask yourself why someone would read this content until the end. And then also decide whether you want to increase engagement with things like video or infographics or interactive elements like quizzes. Most media publishers will be able to help you with these questions and will offer content creation services as well. Writers, photographers, videographers who specialize in sponsored content. So you don't have to find all of those people yourself. All of these specialists will know how to, will work with your business and help you craft your story. When it comes to actually crafting the content, we always recommend avoiding the sales pitch, at least until the end of the story. Using calls to action too early in the story may lead to some people clicking away. And finally, there's lots of great ways to maximize your budget. If you're doing a video shoot, it's often more cost-effective to shoot multiple videos at the same time, to shoot footage that can be reused in multiple videos. You can also create additional versions of the video for specific purposes like pre-roll and social media and YouTube. It also may be possible to create evergreen content that can be reused at other times. We have a client that republishes the same article about do you need snow tires in Vancouver every year at around this time. So reusing articles or producing content that can be easily updated can save on content creation costs. So a mix of timely content and evergreen content is often a great approach. Once the content is created and it's polished and you love it, it's time to make sure that your target audience has the chance to love it too. The old saying about a tree falling in the forest applies here as well. All of your work to produce great content will go to waste if no one can find it. Publishers will often use targeted ads both on social media and on their websites to drive readers to your content. At Postmedia, for example, your content may be published on the Ottawa Citizen, but we have the ability to serve targeted ads, in-feed ads to your audience on the Montreal Gazette, National Post, Regina Leader Post, or wherever else they happen to be. So here's a few examples of what it looks like when a media publisher promotes sponsored content on social media. You can see, yeah, we typically tag the client's social account on there as well. And then publishing your content in print is also a great option that can have a really big impact, especially if you're looking to reach a broad, affluent audience. People still perceive print ads as more trustworthy than digital ads. And for some clients, there's a certain extra level of prestige that comes with appearing in the print version of a trusted newspaper or magazine. Finally, we always encourage clients to promote their content through their own channels. So if you've published content with a trusted publisher, make sure that you're sharing that content on your own social media, through newsletters, on your website, and oftentimes you could potentially republish the content on your website and on other places, other owned media as well.
Hi, Matt. Another question. You haven't mentioned SEO. Does sponsored content affect SEO?
Yeah, that's a great question. Sponsored content is typically indexed by Google, which means that it will show up on search engine results pages. Not on Google News, but on regular Google search results. A piece of content on a trusted publisher site that links back to your homepage will also provide some SEO juice. The links are no follow, but no follow links are still helpful as part of a link building, link profile building strategy. Okay, so you publish your content. The campaign has run and is completed. We're going to talk about what to do next. So this is the time to review the results and figure out what worked. Most of the time, publishers will be able to provide detailed results of how the campaign performed. So how many people viewed your content, how much time did they spend with your content, how effective were the tactics to promote the content, so engagement rate on social media, for example, how many people clicked through to your website, and finally, once we have all that information, we want to take a step back and figure out, what can we learn from the results and how can we use those learnings moving forward with additional content campaigns. And it's really important to take that step in order to capitalize on the success that you had with, to build on the success that you had with that first campaign. It's also at this time, it's important to keep listening to your customers. One of the questions that we often ask our clients during a kickoff call is, what are your customers most curious about? And, that is something that can evolve over time. But what do they ask you? What are the misconceptions that they have? Getting a sense of consumer perceptions of your business can really help to inform your next piece of content. Next on the list, keep working to establish that brand voice. What messages are you trying to send to readers? It's important to keep reinforcing those messages through all of your content going ahead. And finally, keep giving your customers content that they love. Keep them engaged, keep them coming back for more, keep them on the lookout for more content from you. And that's it. I really hope that everyone has found this presentation useful. And we will now take your questions.
Thanks, Leah and Matt. That was very informative. Some key takeaways here are just truly understanding the importance of content marketing when it comes to your marketing plan. There are some fantastic strategies and tactics that can be implemented to leverage content marketing and maximize your ROI. Content marketing allows a business to be proactive and align their vision and goals, create awareness, and build brand credibility. And lastly, using content to establish expertise, authority, and trust to really benefit your business. We really hope these key takeaways resonate with you for your business. And Sophie, are there any additional questions for Matt and Leah today?
We do have a few. So Leah, why don't we start with you? So we have a question from the chat. Is the sponsored content that we're talking about the same thing as sponsored partnerships you see with influencers on Instagram, for example?
Yeah, great question. So I think it's important to make sure that you understand the difference between sponsored content, which is original content created with a publisher or an influencer, and just a sponsored ad. So you can promote an ad on Facebook just by putting some dollars behind it through your Facebook ad manager, for example. But sponsored content is when you're collaborating with a publisher and it's promoted through their network, or collaborating with an influencer and it's published through their network. And what that does is it gives you the benefit not just of their content expertise, but of their influence with their audience and the reach of their network.
That's great. Thank you. Matt, we have another question. I'll give this one to you. Are thought leadership articles always labeled as sponsored content?
So at Postmedia, when content is written by the client or written by someone outside of the Postmedia team, the content is labeled as an advertisement. And there's a disclaimer at the end of the article that explains the arrangement. This story was provided by and the name of the client for commercial purposes. But typically, any paid content is going to have a label. At Postmedia, content that has, when it's a collaboration where the client is working with us and we're producing the content, that content is labeled as sponsored. So you would see a sponsored by and then the name of the client at the top of the content. But that's the same regardless of the type of approach, whether it's a brand story or thought leadership. We have those labels that we stay consistent with on the content, just to make sure that readers know what they're reading, and that we're being as transparent as possible with the readers.
Great, thank you. Leah, I'll pass the next one to you. What impact do infographics have on a sponsored content article? Are there particular verticals that they work best with?
Yeah, so I think an infographic should be considered as a complement to your story. Whatever you're creating, whether it's a written article, video, what have you, your story is that moment to connect with an audience and build, excitement and offer them valuable information. An infographic can do that too, but you want it to offer something different from the article. And I think what it does best is break down complex statistics. So for example, if you're a brand that wants to talk about your sustainability efforts or charitable giving, just including a number in an article doesn't have a big effect. I think it's really easy for audiences to glaze over numbers. Whereas in an infographic, you could see like $1 billion of charitable giving. How does that break down? Where is that money going? What is its effect? So you can actually take something that readers might gloss over in an article and break it out. So I don't know if it's necessarily a better fit for one industry over another, but it's a great way to break down a complex issue, show steps in a process. For example, for a delivery company, how does your package get from point A to point B, and offer information that maybe doesn't fit along with the content you're already creating, but is important for your audience to learn.
Great, thank you. Matt, next one's for you. We have a question. Can our clients create their own content?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that in a lot of cases, having that content that's written in the first person, that can be very, very powerful. Certainly, most of what we do here is we create content for our clients, but a lot of our clients are also, they're definitely well set up to create content themselves and to create great content. And we absolutely welcome that. And so, certainly there's some businesses out there that are more content savvy than others. That they have the ones that are more savvy will have content creation people on their staff, and they'll have marketing experts and video experts, and they can absolutely create their own content. And certainly we are just in general, I guess. Commercial content studios can often provide advice to clients on how to craft their content and guidelines and things like that, and usually provide some advice on the finished product before it gets published as well.
Great. Okay, Leah, next one's for you. At Postmedia, we run a lot of special sections in print. Could you talk a bit about those themed special sponsored sections and how they work and what they are?
Yeah, absolutely. So at least at Postmedia, and I think other publishers do offer similar opportunities, but at key moments in the year, there are projects that we work on to deliver useful content to audiences around a theme that's really relevant to their lives. So for example, throughout the year, we don't always do content on school supplies or education, but in September, there will be a back to school section in the paper, which has useful information for parents about just those things. And for advertisers, those opportunities are a great chance to advertise, put in an ad or a sponsored article alongside hyper relevant content that isn't necessarily created by another advertiser, but wouldn't occur at other times in the year. So we have sections like back to school. If you think of key moments like the holidays, even Remembrance Day, National Indigenous Peoples Day, these are times when our readers are seeking out really timely information that's helpful, relevant to their lives at that moment. And these sections give advertisers a chance to appear alongside that content in that really hyper relevant targeted content environment.
Perfect. Thanks, Leah. A couple more questions. Let's pass this one to Matt. Matt, you mentioned Facebook remarketing. Could you elaborate a bit on that and what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you use Facebook to promote your content, you're able to build a list of people who have interacted with that content, either that have liked it or commented or clicked through, and who have basically clicked on the ad in any way. And then later on, once the content campaign is completed, you can create another ad campaign, another Facebook ad campaign, often through the client's Facebook account, Facebook page, and target those users that have already indicated that they're interested in your content and in your business. So it's using that information and retargeting those users is a very, very effective tool, and highly recommended for sure.
Great. Leah, let's pass the next one to you. Do you have any tips for creating a call to action at the end of a sponsored article? And how can we make links seem less ad-like to fit with the content?
Yeah, this is a great one, because I think we've said throughout our webinar today, and we say it a lot in sponsored content, you want to give, not take. So if you spend a good chunk of time, creating this amazing article for your client that offers them great advice and useful tips that helps them in their lives, and then at the end, suddenly you're like, please come buy a pair of shoes, they might not be that interested. But instead, if you can kind of soft connect your article's information with maybe another offer in your CTA. So, here's a discount code. Here is a link to like a sale page if you're going for a product, or if you can link them to a blog post on your website that has further information and tips, connect them with an expert at your business who can offer them more advice and support. It's really about how do you continue to offer support and making your CTA align with that.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you, Leah. I think that's it for questions. I'm answering a couple privately, but we'll pass it over to Katrina. And thank you very much, Matt and Leah, for answering these questions.
Great. So, thank you everybody for joining Matt, Leah, Sophie, and myself today. After the webinar, you will receive a few emails from our team that will include valuable tools which can really help in planning out your content strategy, using things like a content planning tool, a guide on how to use content to grow your business, plus we'll also send a copy of the presentation and the on-demand link of today's webinar. At Postmedia, we're really known for building long-term partnerships with our customers. We have worked with 30,000 plus businesses across Canada, and it really does make Postmedia very much so qualified to provide tailored campaigns for businesses, large and small, looking to drive success. We have a platform of trusted brands which can provide you with incredible advertising and marketing solutions. Ultimately, Postmedia can raise your profile, help outsmart your competition, and generate more leads for your business. So let's get started. Connect with us at postmediasolutions.com and visit our Contact Us page or reach out to your media sales consultant today. Thanks again for joining us. We hope today's presentation was informative, and we really look forward to seeing your business grow.